Hi, everybody. This is Elijah, and welcome back to the second podcast of the Rainy Day Movie Reviews website. I would hate to waste any more of your time and talk on and on, so let's just get right to our next movie Captain America, the First Avenger. Believe it or not, Steve Rogers, also known as Captain America, wasn't always a strong and heroic superhuman as we know him. Now, if you've already seen the movie, then you already know all of this. This movie takes place during World War II. Rogers is constantly trying to get into the army, but always getting denied. He was too weak and had too many medical conditions, such as asthma. But eventually, a German professor by the name of Dr. Abraham Ernstine sits down Rogers and tells him that Rogers only gets one shot. So Rogers gets into the army, and once they're at the camp, he is a total failure. He's slow, weak, and stands out in a bad way. Or so we thought. It turns out the professor chose Steve Rogers because he knew that Steve was a good man. The professor had developed a way to make a super soldier. But this professor did not want a strong man with a bad heart. He wanted a weak man with the purest of heart. A strong man with a bad heart is simply a villain. The professor knew this very well and didn't want to create one. So long story short, Steve Rogers becomes a super soldier, but he doesn't do missions at first. In the beginning, he was just a poster boy to motivate the country. But after hearing about his best friend, Bucky Barnes' squadron being captured, Steve goes on a rogue mission and saves them all. This showed the general that Steve Rogers was a very capable soldier. After this rescue mission, Captain America, aka Steve Rogers, was asked to put together a group of strong and capable men, a dream team of sorts, to carry out special missions. Bucky Barnes, Steve Rogers' best friend, was a part of this group. They were to carry out a lot of successful missions in slowly defeating the Nazis and Hydra. Hydra was the branch of the Nazi party, but they had a slightly different plan than the Nazis. The team comes to a certain mission on a train. During the intense fight scene, a side of the train is blown open. Bucky is stuck hanging on the side for his life. Steve couldn't reach him in time, and Bucky falls to his death in a massive ravine. Steve blames himself for Bucky Barnes' death, and that affects the way he thinks for the rest of the movie. I guess it's now time to wrap up this summary. The leader of Hydra, Johann Schmidt, did the same thing Steve Rogers did. He made himself a superhuman. But he didn't end up looking so good. Let's just say there's a reason why he's called the Red Skull. Anyways, Red Skull had a plan to drop a bomb on the US and then proceed with conquering the world, as the US was the biggest threat. Captain America and his forces led one last mission to finish Hydra off once and for all. Steve Rogers was determined to avenge his friend, Bucky Barnes. They busted into the base, the main Hydra base, with one intention: to kill Red Skull and stop the bombs from destroying the US. The Hydra base was successfully captured, but Red Skull got away with the bombs in their airship. But Cap gets on to the ship as well. After an epic brawl between the two, Captain America is victorious over Red Skull. But the bombs are still on their way to blow up America. Captain America's only option is to crash the plane into the ocean with him inside. This would mean he dies, but he is willing to sacrifice himself for the greater good of the country. But at the very end of the movie, Steve wakes up in a room. He busts out of the room and goes onto the streets, and he finds Nick Fury. It turns out Captain America didn't die, but he was frozen for 70 years without aging. Whew. I apologize for the long summary, but I gotta make sure that you understand the whole story before I go into detail on it. There are a few reasons why I really like this movie. One of those reasons is I love how rewatchable this movie is. this is not my first time watching this movie, and it definitely will not be my last. This is probably the fourth or fifth time I've watched this movie. And it's so good and it's so rewatchable because there are things that you notice in the movie that you may not have noticed before. There's subtle details that link it to other movies and other Marvel movies, that is. And it's so creative and so well done that you notice it and you're like, "Oh wow. I never saw that before. I never noticed that before." And you almost want to rewind and you want to go back and look at that, and then just kind of makes you smile on how creative Marvel Studios is in linking it to other movies. These other two reasons for me really loving this plot kind of go together, and it's the gripping storyline and the action within this movie. The action scenes are fantastic. The better ones aren't even Steve Rogers against Red Skull. Like, that's good, but some of the better scenes are just simply war scenes that you could find in other movies, but it's the fact that you add this superhero aspect of it that totally changes it. I planned on talking about why I liked this movie as a whole, but I don't think it's much of a question as to why I like this movie as a whole. Captain America, he's my favorite Avenger. I love the plot, I love the action, I love the story. It's just a phenomenal movie that I could watch forever and ever, and there's a reason why I asked for it for Christmas, because I plan on watching it in the years to come, and I don't plan on ever not loving it, and I don't plan on ever stopping on watching that movie. It's a fantastic movie. Anyways, on to the review portion. Once again, just as the last one, I don't feel like it's a question. In fact, I think this is an even easier answer. This is a 5 out of 5 muffins. Very well done. I highly recommend it. Even if you are not much of a Marvel fan, I still think you should give it a watch. A very, very, very good movie. And yeah, a very good movie. That's all I can really say. And with that being said, I believe that is the end of our second movie reviews podcast, Captain America, the First Avenger. I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble on about this movie and why I love it so much. And if you didn't, well, maybe you'll like the next one. Who knows? I appreciate you for being an audience, and guess I will see you in the next podcast, I guess. Thanks for listening.